we did a bridge round in our investment. So we raised 300K as our pre-seed, and then we did a bridge round afterwards. And during that bridge round, I had a high net worth angel investor, and he asked us one question. He went, "You guys are really nice people." And we were like, "Oh, thank you very much." He goes, "Have you fired anyone?" And we were like, "Oh, how do we answer this one?" And unfortunately, we were in the process of letting individuals go, and we were quite open about that, because for any founder to let staff go is just heartbreaking. But at the end of the day, it is business at the end of the day. And that's what he was saying. Business is ruthless out there. Whenever you're negotiating a deal or anything like that, it could be swept, completely pulled from underneath your feet, and you're just left there laying on your back, and you have to get back up and go for it. So I then confidently went, "Yes, we are in the process." And he goes, "Well, that's good. I'm going to invest in Virtus on that side of things."
Hello, I'm Kieran O'Connor, and this is episode 7 of the Calculated Risks podcast. Today, we're joined by George Bellwood. George is the CEO and co-founder of Virtus Tech. Virtus Tech are a no-code VR platform that allow businesses to actually build their own immersive training content. George started the business in university 6 years ago and has had a great journey so far. He managed to raise £395,000 pre-seed investment. He's recently launched in the US and Australia and appeared on Bargain Hunt once. Hello, George.
Hi there, how you doing?
Very good. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
No, thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
Did you like the introduction about the bargain hunt? I'm sure that's your most notable achievement today. Yeah.
I loved it. I love it so much. I mean, I'm a bit of a celebrity to the older folk, who they didn't see me in the town, but
In the antique world.
Antique world, definitely. I haven't had anyone come for me for autographs yet.
Yeah,
so
soon. I think I gave you a copy of this before, but I start the podcast the same way. Here's a copy of my book. I'm sure you can keep that somewhere, George. I'm sure you've read it already.
I have indeed.
Thank you very much. Yeah. I start the podcast the same way every time, called Calculated Risk. So I like to try and understand the risk tolerance of the people that I speak to. Some people enjoy taking risks, some people not so much, and there's no right or wrong. But can you think back to your the early stages in your career? What was like the first big risk that you took? And how were you feeling at the time, if you can remember that far?
Well, I think the biggest risk that I took was starting a company whilst I was a student at university. And then having to carry that forward and create a career out of it. Naturally, quite a lot of entrepreneurs or quite a lot of people that start up their own companies in whatever sector, they've usually got industry experience from that area where they've worked a whole career in it and came up with an idea or seen a gap in the market and then decided to go, yeah, I'm going to start up my own company. I'm going to go to the customers that my previous employer had and I'll sell it better than them. And what I did was completely different, really, because I came into an industry that I had no idea about. It was brand new. Well, back then, it was an industry that nobody believed in that would ever take off. And I had no experience in this industry, and I was able to basically mold it into my career. And my background has been very much from retail, which is completely the opposite to a tech company. So that was probably the biggest risk that I took.
It's a huge risk.
Yeah.
What did you study in university?
So I did business management marketing. So just it was quite a course that I wasn't really wanting to do at first, actually. I wanted to do a biology course, actually. So I desperately wanted to do that, but I didn't do very well at school. I did it in biology, but I didn't do in other areas. I didn't do well enough for me to be able to go to uni and do it. And I'd failed my first year at uni. I'm happy and open to admit that. When I do talks at the university, I tell them all. I've failed my first year at uni, but I didn't give up, which is what led me to here today.
Absolutely, yeah. So over the 6 years of the business, 7 years?
7 years, yeah.
7 years now. So how has your risk tolerance changed? Are you more confident in taking bigger risks now, or maybe not so much?
Yeah, 100%. I think I'm definitely, well, I say myself, me and my co-founder Robin, we're both big risk takers now. We can calculate bigger risks because we've learnt so much. That is the one thing that this journey has taken me on, which is, wow, I've learnt that much about X, Y, and Z or sales or hiring people that now I can make those calculated risks and do a bigger risk on things. So yeah.
Yeah. And I say this to most people, and the stories that I hear often reflect the same thing, that once you actually take that big risk, whether it's X amount of months or maybe years down the line, you look back and it wasn't that big of a risk, or it's paid dividends and as was the best thing you ever done. And it sounds like starting the business back in university probably was one of the best things you've done.
Yeah, 100%. I think it was the best thing I ever did for my self-growth in the tech sector, understanding how to utilize technology within a particular industry. I also feel that with me, it was kind of a case where I didn't really know what I wanted to do after university, and I had to compete against so many other students as well, which was quite frustrating because before I even started Virtus, I actually applied for multiple intern jobs at like JP Morgan and Chase because I wanted to be an investment banker. I obviously understand the sector. I'd love to have gone into that. I even applied for Admiral. I didn't get through. They came up with some of the questions and it was just bizarre. But it all happens for a reason. So
absolutely. So thinking back to university, then you studied business management.
Yes. Yeah.
How did this idea come about? Like VR, no-code VR platform to help businesses like build their own training. Like, where did this come from?
So I was in my second year at uni. That would be the second year after I failed my first year. I had to resit the year. And then I came back. I luckily went through that resit year. And then I came to my actual second year at uni. And so that kind of, I went to my lecture. It was a marketing lecture. And it was around omni-channels and how a consumer would be able to connect with a business using technology and different channels, and how they could make it more efficient in order to engage customers, make them feel a bit more satisfied with the services, anything like that. And it kind of hit me with the retail background. It kind of hit me where I was like, imagine if you could create an immersive virtual world of your supermarket, your local supermarket, that you could go virtually walking down the aisles whilst you're sitting at home in your living room, and you could pick up the items and you could pop them in your basket, and then a virtual avatar will come up and ask you, is there anything you'd like, or how can I help you? Yes, I'm looking for milk, or I'm looking for this recipe, and it would come up with suggested recipes, everything like that. And that kind of got me thinking during that lecture, and I thought, do you know what? I'd love to give this a try. So I took it back to my co-founder, Robin, who was my housemate at the time at university. So I met him in the first year at uni. And then I took it back to him. He did software engineer from Cardiff University. And he turned around and was like, yeah, why not? We'll give it a go, give it a shot, build an MVP.
Wow. I'm always curious about where people meet their co-founders, particularly if one's technical and one's non-technical. But you said you lived with Robin.
Yes. So I met Robin. It was really, really funny, actually. I wasn't really supposed to be in the halls of residence that I wanted to apply for, but it was the closest one to the business school. So it means I didn't have to get out of bed really early. I could just get out 10 minutes beforehand and just walk into the lecture theatre. And luckily enough, I was contemplating between these two halls of residence, and luckily I actually picked the one I wanted, and he was actually my next door neighbour in my halls of residence. So I met Robin instantly on my first day at university, became really good friends, and then I think during my first year, like at the middle or the end of my first year, I did turn around to Robin and say, I'd love to go into business with you one day. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know how it's going to work, but I would love to go into business with you one day. And he was like, yeah, I would really like to go in business with you. Don't know if he says it now or, he probably thinks, damn it, I've missed that opportunity. I did have to. Yeah, he definitely, he was my next door neighbor from that. And then we lived together with a group of friends throughout the whole university experience. And then I ended up living even further with Robin when we graduated from uni. And it was like 2-3 years after I graduated from uni. So I'd actually been living with Robin for about 7 years. It's about 6 or 7 years.
What a wonderful story. And a stroke of luck, if you like, to be paired up next to someone who you started a business with.
Yes.
fortunate,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's a very, very talented software engineer. Even more talented as a founder as well. So couldn't speak more highly of.
Very
of him.
complimentary. Yeah. What's his background then in terms of before Virtus Tech? What was he doing?
So Robin, when we were doing Virtus Tech, I was a bit more in a fortunate place to continue to work on Virtus whilst I graduated. Now, then the salary wasn't there, but I was able to get my family to help support me on that one, and my parents have kind of like been the saving grace of Virtus Tech in multiple ways. But Robin, obviously, he had to go and get a job, because when Robin had graduated, I had 1 more year left of uni. So although we started the business in the second year, I had 1 more year left at uni, and Robin had to go and get a job, obviously, because Virtus Tech wasn't turning any money over by then. And he went to work for Amplify. So I believe he was one of the first team members that were hired for Amplify, one of the first graduates, if you like, hired from Amplify. So he worked for them for a couple of years, and then he got furloughed. And then Robin moved into sort of military software company he got roped into that his brother worked with. And he made a massive impact in that sector before Virtus started taking off. And then he had to move then to us, because we started to sort of take off then.
Okay, cool. So this is going to be an interesting conversation about the journey of Virtus. So take us back to like the very early days. You've founded the idea. The first 3 months after that, talk to me, like, how quickly did you start building? Just give me an idea.
So the whole idea about where we were from that, instantly I knew we had to do our market research. So I always turn around to students or individuals who want to start a business, and they go, how do I do it? And you're just like, you have to give it a go and just start it, number one. But you also have to learn and understand what the market is, what the problem you're trying to solve, what you're going to be offering customers. Are they going to buy it and pay for it? Because there's no point having a company unless somebody's going to buy it from you, customers. And it doesn't have to be one customer. It needs to be multiple customers. And we went out and did market research. And as a student, I used my student status, if you like. So I called up a student accommodation company in Cardiff, and they were a multinational student accommodation company, massive. They've got buildings all over the world, in Japan, America, Germany, here in the UK. They've got multiple as well. And I called them up and I said, I'd like to speak to your MD of the UK, please. And obviously, naturally, they were like, oh, okay, why is this? Here's an email address. Could you just write it out? And I said, well, I'm a third-year student at Cardiff University, and I've got a project, if you like, that I need to do for my dissertation on building a company. And they were like, okay. And I was like, I'm looking for some one-on-one with the MD to give me advice and guidance on this business idea that I have for my project, even though it wasn't. It was for Virtus, and it was from this idea. So they invited me in, and I sat down and I had a PowerPoint presentation. I took all the images off the internet, just copied and pasted it into my PowerPoint presentation, and I delivered a presentation on how we could make their student accommodation much more appealing, efficient, and how they can also use this internally for managers to build their own sort of stuff. And he loved the idea, didn't like the idea of VR at all, didn't believe in it, because back then no one did. And those first 3 months, I spent maybe once a week going to visit this MD of this company, in the UK MD, not the actual organisation, because that would have been a real big deal. And I just asked him, what are your pain points? And I went, here you go, here's something, what are your pain points? And I'd take that information, I'd take it back to Robin, and Robin will then code and build something to the specification of that individual customer that was telling us what it was that they needed, what would have saved them time and money. So that's kind of what we did within the first 3 months. I went and did my homework basically, and I did what every company should really do, which is I'm just going to go and ask the customer of, is this something that you would buy?
Yeah, I hear that all the time. Just get out to market, speak to the potential customers and find out what problems they have and how you can solve them. Some people aren't too confident, from my experience, in going out to market and speaking to people, whether it be a phone call like you did or even face to face. So in terms of advice for anyone who's either at university or maybe a later on founder, maybe mid-20s, late 20s, early 30s even, what sort of advice can you give or direction for them doing market research?
I think just be confident enough to go out and ask the questions. Go out and try and get the answers that you're looking for, and don't be ashamed or don't be worried of getting turned down by individuals. Like, the biggest fear people have got is rejection. That's the biggest fear.
Completely agree.
And I cannot tell you the amount of rejections I've had and Robin have had during our course of Vertus and at the very beginning. Now, I was just lucky in the timing of it, of going, I've got a student status, if you like. They're a big company. They want to help. People want to help. If it's quite amazing to see. If you send somebody a LinkedIn message and say, look, I just want you to review this, it's free. It will only take a few minutes of your time maybe, or if you don't mind, I'll buy you a coffee and can you just talk me through what you would think? People are actually more open to helping, which is quite fascinating to see.
I completely agree. The amount of people I've met over the last 12 months for a no agenda coffee or lunch, just from a cold message and saying, like, would you be able to help me? I've got something I need to share with you and any sort of advice you can give. I've had way more no's, but the yeses that I did have were really meaningful and have actually led to a relationship, the start of a relationship. So, but I think that initial rejection, if you haven't hardened yourself to receive them up until that time, the first few are really, really painful. You often think you're doing something wrong. You often think, is this the right thing for me? But it's just part of the process.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the first 3 months were market research. When did you realize, we've got something here, we need to go all in on this?
So I think the very first time it took longer than we thought, to be fair. We had to pivot the product quite a bit. The idea that I had it was virtual tours and we build a platform that allows people to build their own immersive areas and spaces. It very much was a market that was just growing at the very start. And this was just before COVID. So this was 2018, 2019. We were kind of just sort of going out there and growing, sort of doing the market research. And then we didn't make our very first sale till 2020, where we had to pivot a little bit, but we got our very first university contract due to obviously COVID had hit. And although COVID was a very unprecedented time for a lot of businesses, and I sympathize with everybody who had a really difficult time with COVID and especially mentally as well. It was an absolute horror show. We as Vertus, I had two options. I could either just sit back and lay back and watch TV shows and just wait for this to blow over, or I'd get in my car and drive to Cardiff every time because I was doing work for the universities. And so what happened was we knew we kind of got something, because after I'd molded this idea from this MD and got our ideal customer, if you like, I took it to a university, and a friend of mine works at university, and he kind of got us in through the door, to be fair. And he presented it, and they said, yeah, we love this idea. Yeah, we want it. Let's do it. Let's go for it. So we kind of knew we were on to something, at least when it came to sort of immersive experiences and how you can create those. And we had to do it in such a simple and easy way to build it up as much as possible. So it kind of took from when we first founded the company and then 3 months after, and then it would probably be about a year, maybe about 9 months to a year afterwards than when we found out. And I mean, it was a lot of iterations when it came to the product.
Yeah.
because I just kept on going at this MD going, right, give me more, give me more, give me more. And it got to the point where it was like, dude, I've got no more to give you.
Do you still speak?
No, we don't speak anymore.
It's got nothing left to say.
We were going to be fair, we were offered, I think, and again, this will come into pricing and how you price your product as well, because sometimes when you first start, it's like, right, put your finger in the air. Where do you go? What's the pricing range do you want to do? And when you know from a customer that goes, nope, you go, damn it, I've gone too high. And they go, oh, yeah. You go, damn it, I know I've gone too low. Or if they're like, yeah, okay, like that, you mean you've hit the sweet spot then. You've hit the point of where if you go any higher, they're going to tell you to get lost. If you go lower, then they're going to be happy, but you've hit them at the right point. So that individual, that company had asked us to potentially do multiple sites across the globe. And I submitted in a proposal to them that was, again, I had no clue how much I had to put this in for. So it was like a 6-figure, kind of higher end 6-figure thing. And then they were like, no. And I went, great, thank you, I really appreciate it. But they did appreciate what I did, and they thought about it, but it was your classic, we'll think about it and then they'll never get back to you sort of thing. So we kind of left that one. So that was quite interesting.
I love the confidence. A high 6-figure, one of the first customers, you got to go for it.
You just have to see. You have to wait and see. I mean, the amount of times that me and Rob, and sometimes even today to a degree, we're still figuring out pricing and how that should reflect in the industry that we work in, because it was new technology really to a degree. But yeah, no, that's kind of, so we don't talk to them anymore or anything like that.
So founded the idea, started the company, market research for 3 months, first customer 9 months down the line. Can you remember how big that was? Like, what were you feeling at the time?
Do you know what? It was, I think when your very first customer that you get that buys a product off you, you're in a bit of shock and you're obviously excited and you're obviously, you're just a bit like at that point of going, really? You're buying my product? Oh, fair play. I'm obviously, yeah, like you said, I'm onto something. And how do I just repeat the process? And it was the fact that the company made money. It was like, wow, okay, so I've got my first one, and it's not massive, but it's still big, and it's still meant a lot to us. So, yeah, that was quite a good feeling moment, really, when we found out. We're like, yeah, we're getting paid. Great, perfect.
What happens after that then? So that was a university, right? So tell me the next steps in the process.
Yeah, so obviously, I graduated university in 2019. Obviously, Robin had been at Amplify for a year by then, but in the evenings, he'd be coming home. I'd do all day, I'd be picking up the phones, cold calling, cold emailing, talking to customers, trying to get selling a product that we kind of didn't have. And it was kind of a place of going, I'm going to sell this to you and I'm just going to figure it out when you say yes and I've got you over the line, because there's no point in me going to build something and then come to you and then say, will you buy it? No, well, I've just built something that you don't really want, but I know one customer wants it and he's given me his feedback, so I guarantee you want this. So as I was sort of doing that during sort of, 2019 to 2020, but up to when COVID was hitting, 2020 was when we made our very first sale. It was kind of a case where we were just building the platform up as much as we possibly can. We didn't have the platform that we have today back then, so we had to manually build things ourselves. So we did a little bit of a cowboy approach, kind of like Amazon, not comparing us to Amazon whatsoever, but with their AWS, basically. The fact that they built a software like the back end for their own internal use, and then realize, wait, hold on, why are we not just selling AWS as well towards everybody else? Why are we not doing that? And then opening up, we did kind of the same thing, but we built our own tool for our own help to build things faster, because we were realizing that, wow, this is a lot of labor to put in to build a experience for customers. So we built a tool, a no-code tool for us to essentially build quicker, of which then we were like, hold on, why aren't we just selling this directly? You know, you just sell the nets straight to the fishermen. You wouldn't just like build the nets and then go and fish it themselves yourself and then give it to the fishermen. You know, you sort of do that.
Yeah. So was that a change of business model then? Was that one of the pivots that you spoke about?
Yeah, so that's definitely one of the pivots that we spoke about. And then I think when 2020 hit and COVID had hit, the virtual tour market boomed big time. I mean, there was a major organization in America called Matterport, and they are Y Combinator backed company. They're American. I think by then, when I was looking them up, they'd already raised $110 million, Series B or Series D, I think, C or D or something like that. They were huge, absolutely huge. And the problem we had was estate agents and universities were going for them and weren't going for us because we were just a small company at first and sort of going through all that sort of stuff. So we realized we needed to change big time and quick. But something lucky kind of happened to us because obviously we were Cardiff University students and we founded the company that obviously got around. There was a massive push in the healthcare sector and NHS where they couldn't during COVID get students into clinical placements. It was just complete lockdown in the hospitals. So because Virtus had built a tool where you could build your own immersive experiences and virtual tours, the Welsh Government and Cardiff University got together and they came up with a project called the Wales Virtual Hospital Project. And this whole project was an idea of it was including all health boards in Wales and all medical schools in Wales. They're band together as a big project and they'll have one tech company that basically leads it. And they will then allow clinicians to build their own immersive simulations for students. So they could train the students remotely and virtually. And they need it to be device agnostic as well, but they wanted it so that a clinician, anyone could come in and just build a quick, easy medical simulation and deploy it out. And that was when Virtus got their very big break in the industry, and we pivoted completely towards training and towards VR and that side of things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So like you said, COVID was a tough time for a lot of people and all of us would wish that never happened, but there was some opportunity and luck, maybe, or fortune, you know, that your platform was in the right place at the right time and you were able to pivot. And that's the beauty of a small business, right? A startup, that you can do those pivots quickly. And you've stuck with that model for the remainder of Virtus, the training focus?
Yeah, so training and experiences. We have pivoted more. So we have just onboarded a medical device company, actually, a major one, 9th largest one in the world, which we're quite pleased about. And we'll be announcing that very shortly, which is obviously now I've sort of explained it now. But they're using our platform to build content around their medical devices and to sell to the medical industry and how they're doing that. So their internal team can get involved because we made it so simple for people to build immersive content and deploy it onto any devices and network. It just makes it scalable, more efficient and more cost effective as well.
It's incredible. And I'm sure we'll come to that in a minute. I want to touch on the pre-seed investment that you received. So you've onboarded your first customer. How far after did you need to raise money? And talk me through that whole process.
So I don't think we kind of we didn't actually plan raising as such, if you like. We got to a point where we were on the Google for Startups Academy program that Tramshire Tech had put up, had started and created. And we were one of the, obviously, many amazing companies that are part of that program, like Figure. Richly did his venue, which was fantastic. There were just so many brilliant organizations during that program that we were on. And obviously working in Tramshire Tech, out of Tramshire Tech, sorry, we kind of got to a point where we were like, oh, we'll go on this program, we'll give it a go. And then Kai Gwinnett, who sits on our board now, and used to work with Robin at Amplify, kind of came to us and said to us, look, have you ever thought about doing like maybe a raise or anything like that to really take it to the next level? Because although we were bootstrapping the company, we were in could I say we were in a really good position? Yes, we were in a good position for investors to invest in us because we were bootstrapped. So we looked more appealing because we'd actually generated some revenue from customers. And with innovation, with technology and how we're moving forward with that. But when we went on to the Google for Startups and we won that pitch with Google, so we had to pitch obviously to Google and to the whole tramshed, and there was all these investors in the room as well. I got swarmed by Dev Bank of Wales asking me tons of questions on where you're at, what our revenue is, everything like this. So I'd just done a pitch to Google and everyone in the room, and then I had to do even more pitches to all these investors that were really keen and interested to meet with me and to understand Virtus. And it got to a point where me and Robin looked at it and went, how do we take Virtus to the next level? We need more capital. We need to really ramp things up. So we naturally then, after winning that Google for Startups, we harnessed that momentum as well, went to DevBank, went to other investors. I went out blasting, speaking to angels and to VCs, just trying to get through the door to people and try to really see if we can start raising some capital.
Well done on winning the Google Startup Academy. That's incredible.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it.
It is incredible. So would you say, I often hear mixed reviews when raising money, especially now. It's quite tough the last 12 months compared to a few years back, the boom, if you like. So was your experience easier because of the Google Startup Trophy, if you like, or how was it for you?
I don't think the Google for Startups really did a massive difference. The number one thing that we have we've learned now, as well as we were learning back then, was the hype of the time. Because at that time, the reason why it was so big was it was 2021, and Facebook previously had just rebranded and renounced themselves as Meta, Metaverse, VR, everything like that. We're a VR-based company. We do a lot of medical stuff, all this, and obviously investors are quite naturally drawn towards that to think, oh, wow, that's fantastic. The biggest thing that we found, which was it's always down to revenue. And it will always be down to revenue, especially here in the UK. America is obviously a different story in terms of how they work. I still think to a degree they're down to revenue as well, obviously. I mean, what investor doesn't want to invest in a company that's not making money? You want an investor to be, I get it with the pre-seed side of it. If they can see that they can help sell it and it's sold, great, happy days. But there is a lack of appetite on risk for investors.
I definitely agree, especially here in the UK. There aren't many companies, I'm speaking from a South Wales perspective. London is a bit different, right? But the South Wales perspective, if startups don't have revenue, it's a very, very tough game to be in, to try and raise any sort of money. So with you having some revenue, did you have a lot of interest from different companies?
No. This is the problem. This is the catch-22. This is one thing that we found very, very difficult, which was it's either never enough. It's like, I remember seeing I can never remember what it is, a Silicon Valley episode. It's a sitcom thing, and the lads are building up their own startup tech company, and he's like, right, revenue, and they're like, no, investment. Well, no, we need to make money, don't we? No, because as soon as you start making money, it's never enough. They want the next biggest one. They'll think, no, you made £100,000 in sales. Great. I want £250,000 in sales instead. Oh, wow, you've made 250,000. I want 500,000. It's like, it just seems to go up. And yeah, I think again, we had the luck of the times of what bigger companies were doing in terms of VR and that momentum, and that was great. We made some money. We were showing that this was product market fit. We had a our investor at the moment, our VC investor in us, is a London-based VC investor. And then, which is a bit of a shame, really, when it comes to us being a Welsh-based organisation, in the sense of where's the Welsh VCs that could come in and help a Welsh-based tech company, And when we had those conversations with investors, it is a bit of a daunting thing whenever you need to convince them that, trust me, I know you're taking a risk. This is the whole point of investment. You're taking a risk, but I don't exactly want to give all my company away. Why do you think I'm doing it? I'm giving my company away. You're not just taking the risk. I'm taking the risk because I'm eating into what could be a great future for me. Well, I won't get as much of that because you're helping me nowadays, but I'm going to work my damn hardest to get your money and get to really make something that I want to. So I think it's a tricky one when it comes to here in South Wales and the rest of the UK. But we've got a London-based VC who invested in us because they believed in us. They believe in what we do.
Yeah. What advice could you give to any company that are looking to raise money at the minute to make themselves look attractable to VCs? Obviously revenue, but aside from that, and is there any tips or general advice you can give when navigating that process from start to finish that people might not be aware of, some blind spots?
Yeah, so I would probably say some tips in terms of other than obviously having revenue. I think if you've got So at the moment, there's a big thing about co-founders, and I don't get it personally. I don't get it. I don't see why it matters with a co-founder. Now, I get it with accountability, but if you've got a co-founder, then you investors are quite like that, because then you're held accountable for the money that you're investing in, how you distribute that out. I was fortunate to find Robin, and we went 50-50. But if you're a single founder, then you can find people that you could maybe give 20% of the company away to, 30% of the company, depending on how much they put into the company as well on that side of things. I would probably say team to a degree, even though that comes under co-founder a little bit. Team, making sure that you've got a good team behind you that believes in the company as well, and that turnover of team. So I would definitely have a little look at and making sure your pitch deck is very to the point as well. Because I have found that I've had to brush up on my skill set on pitching and how I can deliver a presentation to somebody. I think the average investor will take about 30 seconds flicking through your deck, and if they're interested, they'll take it.
Yeah, it's a hard line of providing enough information but keeping them engaged.
Yeah.
I've seen Revolut's first pitch deck that they raised. I don't know, what was it, around £1 million, I believe, for the first one. It was so simple. There was less than 20 words on each slide, mostly pictures actually, 7 slides I think, and even I got the problem by the end of it. So if someone like me who doesn't see many decks can understand it, you're doing something right.
Yeah.
Sometimes more is less. More
is definitely less, 100%. I would agree on that one. Making sure, I think for any founders that are looking to raise money, make sure you've got your documents in order as well, and making sure that you've got your SCIS if you've applied for that, your EIS, advance assurance, because they are very crucial to a lot of investors here in the UK, because that is very much the tax relief that they can get from that.
Absolutely. So the cash hits the bank. That's a lot of money. How do you deploy that cash over the next few months?
So Robin and myself we were quite amazed, obviously, when you're in charge of that, money. Again, accountability from Robin and me, making sure that we are spending wisely. We didn't go away and put ourselves on a huge wage or anything like that. We were quite responsible to understand that we need to continue to try and drive the business, but also keep costs down as much as possible. So during our time during Vertus, we were bootstrapping. We were actually hiring part-timers, and those part-timers were came on full-time then after we got the investment raise. So we were able to bump their salary up to a full-time wage. And then with hiring new staff, we went for the graduate route, which is a fantastic opportunity to do. Problem is we didn't realize how much time it would need to invest in the individuals, which we would have given. We tried to, me and Robin, but the problem we had was because we were starting founders. This is our first company, and at this point it was a bit like we'd already gone maybe about 4 years in, and a company, 95% of companies fail within the first 2-3 years. So we're a bit like, okay, we're kind of doing something because we're still surviving, or we're still actually growing to a degree. We just knew that if we took on graduates, which we did, eventually it got to a point where we couldn't have them anymore, because it got to a point where we needed to mold them into the industry they were, and we didn't go for the experience side of it. So that's kind of where we spent our money at first, to completely revamp the product as well. So the idea was that we just focus solely on the platform, making the platform the best it can be. Because when we built it for the NHS guys, they love their boxes and they love like the very simplistic, old-fashioned stuff. When we got the investment in, we were like, right, we need to revamp this and make it more modern, more slick, using AI, using more features, etc. And that's what we did. We just invested it in the next 2 years, basically, into the product.
Yeah, nice. So running a business is hard enough on its own, making sales, growing, scaling. But then when you add the people management side of things on the graduates, that's a whole nother complexity of however many hours a week. So it's tough. So would you say that in hindsight, you would have rather have hired experienced people, or do you still think the graduate route was the best thing to do at the time?
Experienced people, unfortunately. I would love to have graduates to come and work, to roll out of university and continue working with Virtus Tech and to work with Virtus. The problem is again, the time with so many things going on in my day and Robin's day, and we were forcing ourselves to make time for the individuals that needed to learn, and I wanted to give all of my skill sets over to that individual. It got to a point where it was just too much stress on the business, because we weren't focusing in other key areas that we needed to ensure that we were driving the growth of Virtus.
Yeah, it's really tough because, a lot of the work that we do is with startups, and not many people realize or maybe want to admit that anyone coming into a startup, 50, 60% of the success is down to the person. Can they go the extra mile? Can they solve problems on their own? Can they work unsupervised? But can they ask the right questions? And are they somebody who want to continuously learn? And it's very hard to have those skills coming fresh out of university, I think. It'd be great if they did. But I think they're coming into a startup life, as your first job is tough. It really is tough, especially with the founders being busy growing the business. So what about moving forward for the team, hiring? Do you plan to grow and scale the team?
Oh, 100%. So we're in a position now at Virtus where, so we grew to a team of 12, and then we had to downsize to a team of 5. So, quite a drastic jump from that one, and being quite a young founder to go through that as well. I was asked we did a bridge round in our investment. So we raised 300K as our pre-seed, and then we did a bridge round afterwards. And during that bridge round, I had a high net worth angel investor. And he asked us one question. He went, "You guys are really nice people," to me and Robin. And we were like, "Oh, thank you very much." He goes, "Have you fired anyone?" And we were like, "Ooh, how do we answer this one?" And unfortunately, we were in the process of letting individuals go, and we were quite open about that, because for any founder to let staff go is just heartbreaking. But at the end of the day, it is business at the end of the day, and that's what he was saying. I need to know that you guys seem lovely people, but I need to know business is ruthless out there. Whenever you're negotiating a deal or anything like that, it could be swept, completely pulled from underneath your feet, and you're just left there laying on your back, and you have to get back up and go for it. So I then confidently went, yes, we are in the process. And he goes, well, that's good. I'm going to invest in Virtus on that side of things. So we'd gone through a journey of upscaling, of scaling up the team, and then we've downsized now to 5. We're at a good area at the moment. We're doing really well in terms of the efficiency of our work. The platform has kind of outgrown the team to a degree in the sense of how big it is and how amazing it is, and the team have done a fantastic job. Moving forward, as we're sort of creating more sales and revenue at the moment, we will start to look for new staff members to come on board.
So going back to the investments, you deployed the cash, you invested in a product, invested in people, more importantly. Let's fast forward from there to now, so 7 years in, have you found who the ideal customer is in terms of industry? Where is this platform best suited?
Yeah, so we, as an immersive content creation tool, we call ourselves the no-code virtual reality platform, more so kind of like the PowerPoint of VR or the Canva of VR. That's the slogan that we kind of were given by our customers, and more of the clinical customers, because they're like, wow, this is like building a PowerPoint presentation in that simple format. So we kind of got to a point where we took that on and we sort of built the product around it. And our ideal customers kind of look like the clinical simulation guys, building out immersive clinical simulations. Again, as I said, we've moved more towards building your own immersive content. There's this medical device company that I'm going to be announcing soon of onboarding them as a customer. They're doing marketing. So they're creating their own immersive marketing experiences, going around the whole country and across Europe to demonstrate their products through the content platform that we have. So it's, again, they're in full control of doing that. So we have quite a range of customers, but very much in either the training or the experience part.
And I know what most people are going to be thinking if and when they see the platform, because you showed it to me before. I've seen some demos on LinkedIn, if you like. Is it really that easy to build that platform yourself or that training room yourself with no prior background?
No prior background. We had a doctor, and he doesn't mind me telling people this, actually, because he said, no, you can tell people this. So we had a doctor who works at a university and he also works at NHS, so he's a consultant. He has students and he wanted to build the course himself, and he was like, can I do it on your platform? And we went, yeah, not a problem. So he said, I've got no time whatsoever to go through it. Can you just give it to me? Can I have a go? I said, yeah. We gave it to him. He called me up 5 minutes later and went, bloody hell, this is easy, isn't it? I went, yep. He said, I got it like that. The guy went, I don't even know how to share my screen on Zoom. He's literally, so because, not to put them down, they've got the most soundest minds in the world, medical professionals. It's insane how how clever they are as individuals, but it's insane how they don't work with technology very well. And he picked this platform up so easy because it is simple. Drag and drop your content. That's all you do.
Yeah, I think there's something special in that. So we had Marco on recently, who I mentioned before, and the Configure platform is simplifying data to everyone in a business. So even people who aren't data minded or data led in their approach can understand data. And your platform, despite it looking rather complex and adding so much value to a business, even the people with no prior experience can use it and actually benefit from it in what sounds like half hour.
Yeah.
It's incredible. But where do you think the future of the VR space is going, and how are you going to play a part in that?
Virtual reality is a very interesting sector at the moment. Obviously, you had Apple bringing out their Vision Pro, which they've now discontinued productions because their sales weren't doing very well. So they've only just stopped doing production work on it. I mean, you can still go and buy one because they've got a load of stock they're sitting on it. But it's because at the moment, the everyday consumer behavior is not there. Meta are doing something very, very clever, to be fair to Meta. They've got a kit that is amazingly advanced, very affordable for individuals, $400 or £400 for a VR headset that is essentially like an iPhone. And they're quite, like I said, they're quite clever in what their approach is. They've teamed up with Ray-Ban. So you have Ray-Ban glasses that can take pictures and record. And they're obviously going to try and mold that into one so that you wear glasses and you can virtually see your surroundings, and they'll come up with pop-ups and AR and this, that, and the other. But they're quite clever because they're hitting the education sector. So they're trying to get it into schools. And the reason why they're trying to get it into schools is because when you were growing up, you would go, well, I used pen and paper. So what do you use now? Pen and paper. You ask kids nowadays, go and take notes on something. They would pull up their iPad or they'll pull up their mobile phone to take notes. And that is where Meta are kind of pushing the technology, which we want to be part of in terms of how businesses are adopting this technology and how they're driving forward their innovation, efficiency in training, especially with reducing those costs, because that's kind of what we want it to be, is that affordable platform to allow people to build their own cost-effective training, and then marry that with whatever device they will want to use, because we're a device agnostic company, so you can use it on any device. It doesn't have to be VR headsets, desktop, laptop, tablet. Immersive walls is one of them. That's a big one that's just come up as well.
You mentioned that you've onboarded, or you've gone international recently and onboarded a company in the US and soon to be Australia. How did you make those relationships, and how does that start from a small company in Cardiff,
Yeah, so do you know what? It was crazy because when we made our very first international sale, it was like, wow, okay, this is quite cool. I'm serving a customer that's based out in the US, loves the platform. They're a high school that have just been using it for their students and building it out. The way I got through to that individual was through a network of individuals in America who are leading this industry of VR and how they're going around. The Australian one came from a partner company that we've just partnered up with called Simovation. Now, Simovation are a Australian-based medical consultancy company that provide goods and services of third parties to local health boards and universities in Australia. They were introduced to us by our other UK partners here in Manchester called Generate Healthcare or Generate Spaces. They're an immersive wall tech company. So their whole immersive walls basically means that our software works on their walls and that people can build their own simulations and stuff, and they can actually project it onto the immersive walls where you can touch the walls. Kind of like when you go to the zoo and you can touch the immersive interactive walls. So they actually introduced us to the Simovation guys, and the Simovation managing director, he loves our platform and our product, and he's like, Australia needs this and New Zealand needs this, and he was like, I'm going to do it. And so now we're working on 4 deals now at the moment in Australia, and that's hopefully going to be going bigger. So I'm looking for an excuse to go to Australia.
I was going to say an Australian office open soon.
I'm going to try and get it more towards Christmas because I know that's when it's the hottest.
Absolutely.
I don't want to miss our own summer if we're going to have one.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Incredible. So international expansion. That's incredible. So do you think the future of VR is VR? Sorry. Do you think every company at some point within the ICP, whether it's public sector or healthcare, will be doing VR in X amount of years?
I think in public sector, they're already doing it. They're already pushing for it because it's saving them a lot of time and money. Private sector is a bit slower to come on. With the private sector, they will eventually adopt this to move forward, and they will invest quite heavily into it. The future of VR will actually be, and whether it will really blow up, will be determined to everyday individuals, consumers, and how they will use it and if they want to use it. Because if they start using it, then the private sector companies will want to use it. Public sector's already, as I said, already using it. They've been using it for the past sort of 5 years, and they've invested very heavily into it. So PwC has done quite a number of different reports around this. But definitely in the next 5 to 10 years, it'll blow up.
It's quite an exciting time for you if Meta are pushing this as well, particularly into schools, and you can join that wave. You're already on the wave by the sounds of it, but join that wave and kind of kind of make your dent in this VR world as well?
Yeah, I mean, you've got loads of major organizations jumping into this sector. Meta, HTC, Microsoft, Google. Google will eventually bring out, I think they're looking at Lenovo. Yeah, there's so many major big tech companies that are looking at this technology. Apple, as I said, I mean, when does Apple ever bring out a product and they try and throw everything into it? Now, usually Apple succeed in everything that they do. The question mark will be around VR. Has it been a massive flop for them? Or is this just a delay for them at the moment that they just wanted to get it out there and then they'll move forward when the time is right?
So what about the next 12 months? What's the plans for you and Virtus?
Continue growth. We will work to just continue to grow our revenues as much as we possibly can, serving internationally as well, working with close partners and resellers, because that seems to have been quite successful for us at the moment. And then we will look to take it to the next level. So we will probably look to go for an investment raise if we can. Not sure yet when that will be, if that will be in the next 12 months. But our philosophy now is just get up the revenue, get it to a point where we are organically growing sustainably, and then we can then take it to the next level and really push it.
It's a really exciting time. And it's been a great journey for you and Robin so far. Like thinking back, I just want to recap for what we spoke about for the last hour. Is there any real highlights of lessons that you would share with anyone who's on this journey as well of growing a business? Like things that you either wish you did differently or things in hindsight which you just wish you didn't do at all?
No. I know it sounds really corny and it's sort of cliche, but there's nothing that I've done during this journey that I wish I never did, because I've learned so much. Give me another company, I know what I to a degree I'll still learn from that one, but I know what I'm doing. I know what to avoid. And that's sometimes the thing. I mean, my father always told me, he always tells me, no, don't do that. You can hit the brick wall. What happens? I hit the brick wall. Then I learn my lesson. It's the same philosophy that I've got with this business. It's like I've hit all the brick walls, HR, sales, raising investment. I know I'm going to learn so much more continuing forward, but there's just nothing, because otherwise I wouldn't know where I am sitting here today. I wouldn't have made the decisions and choices.
That's a good perspective to have. And there's one thing that's guaranteed moving forward is more learning. Just more learning if you're growing a business. I think that's the beauty of having someone on board who's maybe a nerd or like a consultant as well, particularly Kai, who's maybe learned some stuff that you're yet to learn. They can share that advice with you, but some things you have to learn yourself.
Oh yeah, 100%.
The hard way.
Yeah. No, Kai's been fantastic. He's been a really good help for Virtus, and his knowledge has really helped drive the company forward. And again, because we've learned and we come into situations, we can always sort of lean on Kai to say, look, can you give us your opinion on this, and what would your advice be? So fantastic advisor, mentor, board director for us.
Invaluable. Yeah. I guess final question then, what's your perspective on the South Wales ecosystem, and how do you think people as a collective can improve the other entrepreneurs we produce, the investment we can get? I know there's some great organisations who are flying the flag in different countries, land in London, and really trying to promote South Wales, but what do you think needs to change to really take things to the next level?
I mean, I don't want to go on about the investment side of it, because, we know that that's just, everyone has been talking about that side of things. I think they're just more awareness of supporting founders and startups across South Wales. I think being a bit more engaged as well. I think for the ecosystem, the likes of Welsh Government needs to get more involved with roundtables and talking to businesses like ours who aren't obviously the size of pure cyber and, configure and final rentals, we're, not up to their level as of yet. But we kind of, we're aspiring and we're growing and we're really pushing to get to that level. And we kind of want to speak with the Welsh Government to help us on this side of things, because it's a bit like, well, what is it that I need support from and, to help to stay in Wales? Because I will be completely honest with you, Virtus has been questioned about staying in Wales, not by us necessarily, but by some investors. We've had some of our investors sit there and say, do you really think staying in Wales is a good idea? And that is just, for me, it's just like, well, there you go. But no, we're wanting to stay here in Wales, and we want to try and make it work and fly the flag across, different nations and everything like that.
Good. So if there's any, just by chance, that anyone from Welsh Government is watching this, please get in touch with George.
Do it.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for coming on today, George. I've really enjoyed speaking with you.
No, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man. That was episode 7 with George Bellwood. What an inspiring story, listening to his journey from a university graduate to growing a company for the last 6 to 7 years. Really interested to hear all the touch points throughout growing a business, things like investment, growing a team, scaling the team and downsizing a team, and how the future of VR is going to play out in this world. Please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.